like to, as a welcoming speech, thank everybody for joining us for the 40th annual general meeting of our members at the Long Island Marriott in Uniondale, New York, this January 9th, 2022. It is really exceptional that our organization has been part of this community for the last 4 decades. Many wonderful people have come before us, and many, many more will come forth in the future and make sure that our organization survives another 40 years. Today, with everything that's going on with our pandemic, we are going to be more resilient than ever, which is why we are having this meeting in person and virtually. Myself specifically, I have tested positive for COVID, and which is why we're doing this virtually. So my apologies that I couldn't be there, but our Vice President, Mr. Manny, and I thought it would be best for me to, at least from my bedroom, come forth to you guys at the Marriott just to give this welcoming speech. We will fight this and beat this pandemic, and hopefully in the next few months, the future is bright. I appreciate it. We have a wonderful speaker with us today, Ms. Nahid Rachlin, who will be presented live by our board member, Mrs. Heidi Daneshvar. And we will have the chair of our election committee, Mr. Soroush Gourougi, administer our annual election for the 2022-2024 candidates. There are 4 positions and 4 candidates. So the good thing is all our great candidates will become part of our board of directors. We have done many great things throughout this year and are very, very proud that we have managed to prioritize the health and safety of our community. And we have begun conducting some in-person activities and events. We have regularly been running our Ferdowsi Farsi schools, the Long Island one, which is in person. We have managed to keep everyone healthy and safe throughout this entire pandemic. Thank God, knock on wood. It has been a huge, I just wanted to add that we've also added and expanded Farsi classes for adults in 2021. It has been a huge success, and we will continue these classes way into the future. As the president this past year, I wish to thank our entire board of directors, Mr. Mani, Mrs. Shola Sharifi, Mrs. Floria Nikpur, Mrs. Heidi Daneshvar, Mrs. Vida Tehrani, Mrs. Margaret Nia, and Mr. Soroush Gourougi and Mr. Majid Khosrowshahi. I thank all of you, but I also thank Mrs. Marjan Khalili, and of course, all of the teachers that do wonderful things for us and really run our Farsi Ferdowsi schools, which is the crown jewel of this organization, and it has been since at least 1990. We have to survive this new world, and we're doing it. But I want to also encourage people that hopefully in the next several months, from what we're hearing in the news, that life may go back to normal in the spring and summer, and we hope to see everyone in the community join one another once again. I ask for all the events and activities that we do, please visit our website at www.iasnewyork.org. As it's always updated, please join our mailing list so you get emails and updates. And on behalf of the board of directors, I do want to thank everyone who has joined us, our guest speaker today, Ms. Nahid Rachlin. And now I give the microphone to start our program to Mrs. Heidi Daneshvar to introduce Mrs. Nahid Rachlin properly. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being a part of IAS. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to IAS annual 40th election anniversary. I'm so pleased to be with you today and to have a chance to introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Nahid Rachlin. Nahid Rachlin is an Iranian-American novelist, and short story writer. She was born and raised in Iran. She completed her secondary education in Abadan, Iran, and then immigrated to US in 1966. In 1970, she pursued graduate study in creative writing and short stories. Nahid went to Columbia University writing program on a double-day Columbia Fellowship, and then went on to Stanford University. In 1978, Nahid returned to Iran for the first time in 12 years, drawing on the experience for her debut novel, Foreigner, which ultimately resulted in writing many more novels and memoirs, such as Persian Girls, my favorite, novels such as Jumping Over Fire, Married to a Stranger, and Crowd of Sorrows. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Nahid Rachlin. Welcome.
I should start. Okay. First, I want to tell you what led me to become a writer. When I was in Iran, in high school, I used to always go to a room and write because I just wanted to figure out all the strange things in my life that way. I was given away to my aunt when I was a baby because my mother had many children and my aunt didn't have any. So I lived with my aunt for a while until my father came and forced me to go back to live with them in Abbas. So as a result, I became extremely introspective, and I kept thinking maybe if I read a lot of books, I find out the answer to what I can't understand. And my composition teacher really liked my writing, and so that also encouraged me to keep writing. But when I came to the United States, I majored in psychology because I thought we can't make a living as a writer right away. It may take a while before you make money. So I majored in psychology, but then I decided to just forget the psychology. It made me very upset to deal with patients and their pain and all that. So then I went to Columbia, I got an MFA in writing, and then in Stanford again in writing. And the first book I had written and evaluated by the professors in Stanford is called Foreigner. And the point of Foreigner is that this character feels foreign, both in the United States and in Iran. Like she really doesn't know where she belongs. But by the end of the book, she decides to stay in Iran. And her husband comes to take her back. She doesn't go back with him. She feels more peace in Iran because she had lost her mother at some point. And then while she's there, she searches for her mother and finds her and decides to just stay there. So that's the one which is called Foreign. The newest one is a memoir based in a real life story, lifetime story of myself and my sister Patty. I was extremely close to that sister, and we both have aspirations. She wanted to become an actress, and I wanted to become a writer. Of course, being an actress was impossible in Iran at that time. So instead, she fell into an arranged marriage that was terrible. And the husband was really evil. And when she asked for divorce at the time, under the Shah, if you initiate divorce, the child automatically goes to the husband. There is no way you could get your child back. And the husband took her son, away somewhere that she could never visit him. And so it was very tragic. So I wrote these Persian girls because I wanted to show how our lives were in different directions. My sister living here and me here. And at one point, I heard that she fell down the stairs and died. And that was so shocking. And I wondered if it was suicide. So I went back to Iran at that time to see what her friends say. Why was it suicide or it really was accidental? Well, she had two friends with her at the time when she fell, and they didn't think it was suicide. Their belief was she just fell. But anyhow, while I was there, I looked into a lot of things, a lot of background information and all that. And so I wrote Persian Girls, most of it devoted to my sister's life and some about myself. So those are the two that has gotten more recognition than my other books. So that's about it as far as the summary of the books. Any questions?
The book, your book was.
You know why? Because you're wearing a mask. Okay, here.
Your book was completely about your life and your sister's life and what you want in future.
Right.
That was right. You know, like the true story about your life. It was.
Well, Foreigner is basically is fiction,
Yes.
but it's more about my life. But Persian Girl is more about my sister than myself.
Yeah, thank you.
So any questions? Well, you know, well, I can tell you one thing that might be interesting to you, the difference between writing a memoir and writing a fiction. In that, in memoir, of course, you don't remember, for instance, things you write in a memoir that you don't remember if your father said exactly these words and all these things. But it's allowed in memoir to just capture the essence of the truth. It doesn't have to be specifically true in the date and all that. As long as it's the essence of the truth is there, that's acceptable. Whereas in fiction, you can make up anything you want. So having written both, I guess I really prefer fiction in general. And I think that memoir just was because I wanted to get connected to my sister.
Can you start just with one book at the end, or you have other books also?
Pardon me?
You start with one book that was about your life, or you have other books about.
Well, yeah, I have a few other books that are published, but these are the two that have gotten more recognition.
How hard was the road to getting things published for you?
But in general, it's extremely hard. But I was lucky after I came back from Stanford, is that the Foreigner had been the one that had been critiqued by the professors and all that. When I came to New York, I sent it to, on my own at the time, I just sent it to Norton. And this woman there said, I read it, but we are not allowed to take anything unless it's presented by an agent. So I found an agent for it. And that was my first novel. She loved it, that woman. Unfortunately, she's not alive anymore. So that was my first experience, right after I came back and published.
So wasn't that hard? That wasn't that hard. A lot of people say it's almost impossible to publish, but it went.
Yeah, it's impossible to publish. Then to me, it wasn't that easy because I know a lot of people graduated and they didn't get it published. It has always been hard. But now, the reason it's hard, it's not hard for publishing certain kind of books, but they're not that interested in what's called literary fiction, which is mine falls into, because usually they feel that only more commercially oriented books do well, but different kind, they will get published very easily and continues to get published.
I'm sorry again, but maybe I have this question. Could you name this new book you have inserted this book about your memory? What is the name of the other books?
The one which is about my family is called Persian Girls.
Okay.
And the name of the very first novel I wrote is Foreign, like being from another country, foreigner. But the point of the word foreigner is that the character in the book feels both foreign in Iran and the US. Like she doesn't know where she belongs. But at the end, she just decides to stay there after she calls her mother.
I have a question. When you are starting to write your stories, when you're thinking back to the timeline of life, when do you get a starting point to start the story?
Well, it's just like a trial and error. I start putting down paragraphs, whatever comes to my head, and keep going. And at some point, I read the whole thing and decide what's best for the beginning and what's best for the end. But it's like, I don't write by outline. I just write whatever I can, just spontaneously, and then decide about the structure of it.
I have a question. I myself, I've been used to be writing my own story. And sometimes I don't know from where to begin, and the memories come to my mind, as Melanie was saying, it's very scattered. So I write, for example, I write it for math, and then I remember last year, 10 years ago, this memories comes to me. How can I put them together and arrange them, bring on a book?
Right. But the best thing is just first write the first draft, put it aside for a couple of weeks so you have distance from it, then go back to it, reread it, and see what's best to be at the beginning. That's it. It's always, you have to go through several drafts to figure out what the structure should be.
Do you write it in English or in Farsi?
Me is only in English.
Ms. Rachlin, I have a question for you. I have read most of your books, Persian Girls, Foreigners, also Jumping Over Fire, Married to a Sprinter. And of course, they're all written in English, but have they been translated into Farsi?
You want to hear something? It didn't pass the censorship in Iran. The first one was under the Shah, Foreigners. That was published so many years ago. Why did it get censored? Because this woman stays in a hotel and finds a cockroach on the bed, and they completely canceled the thing. They said the Shah would not like it that there is a cockroach on a bed. That means that he's not doing a good job, so they just censored it. But you know what? Some Iranians who have friends in the US or Europe, they buy it for them and give it to them, because I hear from some of these people from Iran.
Has it been translated in any other language?
Yes, it has been translated in Polish, Portuguese, I'm trying to think what else, Arabic. There is another one too, I can't think of which one. Not into Farsi.
Question for you.
I'm sorry. Can I ask another question?
Just to follow up to that, did they give you the opportunity to make changes or edits to take out the things that they didn't want? Because you would have a much larger audience if you were able to publish the books, no? Did they give you that opportunity, or they just said, no, there's one thing we don't like, that's it?
And there is nothing I don't like.
No, when your book was censored in
Oh,
Iran,
I see.
especially were you given opportunity to take that content out of the book or
I
revise
just
it?
have one which has a cockroach in it. I don't think so, because the censorship was so heavy. If the cockroach wasn't there, they would find something else they don't like.
But it had nothing to do with the cockroach.
Then, I mean, they said it's the cockroach, but I'm sure it was more than that. Because like you said, I could have taken the cockroach out, they could have taken it out. But it's just like somebody really wanted to translate it. Someone who lives actually in the United States, an Iranian man, wanted to translate it and into Farsi and pass the censorship, hopefully. He did translate it into Farsi himself, but they didn't publish.
I have a question. How do you overcome with self-censoring?
How do I want?
Well, I'm born and raised in Iran, and the mentality that we have, we censor ourselves.
That's right.
Before we say anything even how do you come over with the self-censor?
Well, I mean, I'm living basically in the United States, so I just ignore the censorship there because I'm not that restricted because I'm living here.
No,
Was
I
that your
understand
question?
that. I mean, this is in part of my mentality now, self-censoring. It is part of my mentality that if I'm gonna write something, myself censor that.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
how do you overcome that self-censoring?
I guess you have to talk yourself into it. There is no easy way. You just have to say, just ramble on, just keep writing, and finally put it into some shape.
Awareness.
I mean, part of the inhibition is because you think that the first draft is the final draft, so you don't know what to do about that. And if you just keep writing whatever comes to your mind, set it aside, then try to structure it.
You mentioned in The Foreigner, the main character felt foreign here and also in Iran.
Right.
How did she feel foreigner in her own country? What was the reason behind that?
You mean in her own country?
Well, I'm assuming it was in Iran, right? Or
Right, Iran.
so why was she a foreigner there?
Well, because I had come, that's based on my own life. I had come here as a teen, I was 70 years old when I came here. And when I went back to Iran, my value systems had changed so much.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have the same general values that everybody else had. And so that made me feel foreign. And when I'm here, I know I'm from Iran. I know the language, I have family there. So I don't feel American either, even though I was married to an American man too. But it's just, I still feel that way. Like, where do I belong really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't hear.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Where did that come?
All right. Okay. The first is Vida Tehrani. Okay. Ms. Haide Daneshvar, Mr. Saeed Mani'i, and Ms. Vida Tehrani. Ms. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani'i, and Ms. Vida Tehrani. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani'i. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani and Mrs. Vida Tehrani. Mr. Saeed Mani'i, Mrs. Vida Tehrani. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, and Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mr. Saeed Manihi, Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mr. Saeed Manihi and Mrs. Vida Tehran. This is Haile Daneshvar. This is Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani. Mrs. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran.
Oh, well, that's fine. This is the fact, you're right. Keep that. Got it.
Mrs. Mandana Haqqani. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani and Mr. Saeed Manihi. Mr. Saeed Manihi and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mr. Saeed Manihi, Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mr. Saeed Manihi and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Haile Daneshvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi, and Mrs. Vida Tehran. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Manihi. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani and Mr. Saeed Mani. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani, and Mrs. Vida Terra. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani. Yeah, just. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani and Mr. Saeed Mani. Mrs. Haida Danishvar and Mr. Saeed Mani. Mr. Saeed Mani and Mrs. Vida Terra. Mr. Saeed Mani. Mr. Saeed Mani and Mrs. Vida Terra. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani, and Mrs. Vida Terra. Mrs. Haida Danishvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani, and Mrs. Vida Terra. Mrs. Haida Danishvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani, and Mrs. Vida Terra. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani and Mr. Saeed Mani. Mr. Saeed Mani. Mr. Saeed Mani. Mrs. Haida Danishvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani, and Mrs. Vida Terra. Mrs. Mandana Haqqani and Mr. Saeed Mani. Mr. Saeed Mani. Mrs. Haida Danishvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani, and Mrs. Vida Terra. Mrs. Haida Danishvar, Mrs. Mandana Haqqani, Mr. Saeed Mani, and Mrs. Vida Terra. That's all, Joe?
That's it.
That's it? Okay.
So,
So,
motion to show wish to that we don't establish.
all right. Okay,
So I'm still here.
Mr. Haider, did you have the numbers or?
You have to have the numbers. You're the chair.
Okay, this is the number we got.
What is it, you want to compare it now?
Yeah, okay, so, this is, okay. So, Mrs. Haide Danishvar, 17. Mrs. Mandana Habani, 32. Mr. Sahid Mani, 43. And Mrs. Vida Tehrani, 30 votes.
So the only one that I didn't have the same was Mandana Havani. I had 38, but other than that, and you could look it up because we have to confirm it, but everybody else was correct.
Okay, give me call this 2 minutes.
Well, congratulations to everyone.
Yeah.
Mr. Mani, I think, is the only candidate that's not there. So congratulations, Mrs. Tehrani. Congratulations, Mrs. Danishvar. Congratulations. There he is. Mr. Mani, just on a side note, there was a lot of single votes for Mr. Mani. How many votes did you get?
You are on mute, Mr.
Mute ya Mani. On mute بزن بعد به ما بگو چی شده.
I only can have 4 votes, so I cannot be more than that. People are very kind enough, and thanks everyone for the trusting in me, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mani. That was a joke. Well, thank you, Dr. Tabrizi. Thank you, Mrs. Nia. Thank you, Roshi Jun. Mr. Gorogi, thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being there. Thank you, Mr. Umesh, for doing our best to have an event like this, both in person.
One, two, three. One, two, three. And then we'll- One, two. Yeah, you can say so. Want to stand perfect? Watch.
Before you post. These people
Come on.
are
One, two, three. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So much. Sure, sure.
Done. Let me just get these.
Please, Mr. Gorogi, please, can you just keep all of that and put it in an envelope and seal it when you get all of it?
Separating the numbers for Ms.
Okay, but Miss, what is, all the envelopes, keep those too. I think Mrs. Manji had,
Definitely, no, they are here.
keep it together so we could keep it in our records, for our records.
Okay, I think, should we recount this right now? It's still 32.
Excellent. So you're right, if you're really looking at it right. So just, so this June, just have that and sign it yourself, the count on a piece of paper that you counted and sign it and put it with that and put it in an envelope and seal it for us.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anything else, Mr.?
There is nothing else. Thank you all very much for your hard work and making sure that the 40th meeting of the general meeting and meeting of the members actually happens. Thank you for all your help. Thank you, Mr. Ururi, Mrs. Daneshvar, Mrs. Tehrani, and everyone else that's there that's giving assistance. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.